when we look at what's happened in the United States in recent months, we've seen an absolute sea change in the way that country's been governed. It's done a full 360. But the difference between the United Kingdom and the United States of America is they had an election, and probably they've got 2 years to really get the pedal on the gas with this, because obviously they've got midterm elections coming up. I think it's 2 years' time, isn't it? Which are more important than just local council elections, which is what we have midterm. But the reality is they made the election too big to rig. And the question that we've got to ask ourselves, with the current leadership of reform, is there going to be that critical mass that's going to make the centre-right, which is, I class anything from UKIP through to the right wing of the Conservative Party, and some of the smaller independents, a bit like Ben Habib, Reform, other people that are just on the sort of periphery. Centre-right. Is the centre-right big enough in the UK to win an election? That's the first question. Then, and not to win an election. Reform and a cobbled together coalition with possibly some right-wing Tories could get a slim majority. That's not enough. What Trump and Vance have said is that we got such a massive mandate that we have 4 years to turn this country upon its head. And that's what we need in the UK. We need a similar sort of mentality. And does Nigel Farage, Mohammed Zia Youssef, and the other fella, Richard Tice, have what it takes to get the British working class, the British middle class, and even some of the British elite to join together to form that right-wing coalition? Some of the tech moguls, if there's any left in the UK, by the way it's going, tech moguls will be people with a website selling widgets, because everybody's fleeing with all the cash. But, you know, is it possible? Is it possible to put together that centre-right coalition? I think it is, but not with Farage, who I see as a political opportunist, Richard Tice, who's just a Tory boy, and Mohammed Zia Youssef, who seems to be a bit of a hatchet man that's sacking anybody he can get his hands on. There needs to be reform in reform. Reform needs to democratise, as Ben Habib keeps saying. Rupert Lowe, Ben Habib, as far as I'm concerned, should be leading that party. Yes, Farage is a great campaigner. Yes, he's Mr. Brexit, etc. But he's yesterday's man. We need new blood in there that's going to change things. And then I want to look at Nick Tenconi. And Nick did a fantastic video at the weekend where he's very quiet, walking through a shopping centre, talking into his phone. And I've been critical of Nick. I was critical of him, sort of running around with a megaphone. I didn't like that. I didn't think it was a good look for a party leader. But now he is looking like a party leader. And his message is uncompromising. His message is tough. And his message is one that most people on our side could absolutely get behind. So what happens then? Well, if Nick Tenconi keeps doing what he's doing, and he keeps that calm, cool, collective voice going, doesn't get involved in too much street politics, behaves like the party leader that he is, keeps the message the same, keeps on message, and just stays the course, he will attract tens of thousands of people. Because the reform offering at the minute is way too soft. And if Nick Tenconi can get his party leadership up to the 50,000 mark in a couple of years, he is then in a position where he can drag reform to the right, and reform would almost be coming to Nick and saying, we want you to work with us in the next election. Now, that's what has to happen, because we need a strong UKIP to pull reform to the right. We need a strong reform to pull the Tories to the right. And we need a very weak Tory party with a right-wing rump to come together to do battle in the next election. So that's mechanically what needs to happen. The question is, will the players on the pitch do what needs to be done? If Nick keeps going like he's going, he's got a very good chance of building UKIP into a fighting force before the next election, without a shadow of doubt. Don't be running around with a megaphone, Nick. Just keep that calm, measured message that you're doing on the interviews with Liam Tufts, like you did on the interview with me, like you were doing when you were walking through the shopping centre. That's the way to win the British people over, not with megaphone diplomacy. That's my opinion, and I'm allowed to speak my opinion. Reform They need to come to the right. They need to get rid of Farage, get rid of Tice, get rid of Zia Youssef. And the Tory party, the Soil Bravemans, the Generics, they're not that relevant, but they need to come across as well. So we've got a very, very broad coalition. And then we need some real thought leaders. There's so many things to think about politically. There's the military situation in the country. We're basically a defenceless country. If Russia launched missile attacks on the UK, even without nuclear weapons, we'd be decimated in minutes. With no defence system. The immigration situation is an absolute disaster. The community cohesion with the preferred demographic, shocking. There's a lot needs sorted out, and of course economically we've got shale oil under Lincolnshire or Norfolk or whatever it is. We've got gas in the North Sea. We've got oil fields. We've got coal. We've got loads of stuff that we can dig out of the ground and use to fuel our economy. And of course, with these lunatics that run in the country at the minute, they're just wanting to bankrupt the country and push us all into poverty. So there's a lot needs done, and that needs a massive amount of action from people on the right. We need to come together. We need to unite. 10 out of 10 to Nick for what he's doing. Get Rupert Lowe and Ben Habib into reform. Bring the right-wing Tories across, and we've got a fighting chance. See you all soon.